Hi there, this is Ashley L. Jones, author of Modern Cast Iron. Today I am so fortunate to have with me Chef Lance McGinnis.
Hello.
Of Grits and Greenz here in Tallahassee, Florida. He's actually doing a cooking demo today at the prepared table, and I got to cut the potatoes, so I'm really excited about this.
And
I got to help, and the mushrooms and the onions, so I got to help. So this is just really exciting to be here today. Chef Lance cooks not just at an awesome food truck, Grits and Greenz, but Chef Lance uses cast iron to do this in a food truck, which I think is just super cool. So I want to pick your brain about this.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, when did you start Grits and Greenz? It was a restaurant first.
In 2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you...
That was, we went for a year in the restaurant. And when our first year's lease was up, the space was much too expensive for the location. We found out that too late, but so we shut that down. Did some private chefing around the world for a couple of years, and then moved back to Tallahassee and started working on the school bus. Old School Foods by Grits and Greenz.
It's an actual school bus.
Yeah, we
that
do
you
Southern
converted.
food. Yep, shrimp and grits, chicken and waffles.
I love it.
Old Southern food with a twist.
Love it. Love it. Okay. So when it comes to cast iron, I have no idea how does this work in a restaurant setting, because so many people, their response to me when I talk about cast iron is, oh, it's hard. It's hard to clean, it's hard to season, and I know that's not true, but in a restaurant setting, you would be using it a lot more than I would be at home. So how often do you use it? Let's start there. Do you use it a lot?
We don't use the cast iron in the actual cook. When I'm cooking to order, I can't use cast iron.
Okay.
Because you'd have to, it'd be significantly difficult to clean and prep for the very next order. With a cast iron pan. I do use cast iron for the cornbread, so we definitely use it for that.
Because you have to. It's cornbread.
Well, I mean, it's the only way.
Okay.
The only way. And it's got to be hot and sizzling when you pour it in. And then special events when we do Southern breakfasts and stuff, well, I'll do biscuits in the cast iron. I'll do frittatas in the cast iron. As a matter of fact, one of the cast iron classes we do here is a brunch type thing, and we'll do a frittata and then biscuits and the gravy all in the cast iron. So that whole entire brunch is made in cast iron in front of the class. So it's definitely doable. In a restaurant setting, it's a lot more difficult unless it's just a one-off with, like the cornbread. You can make the 3 or 4 batches of cornbread, cut them up, wrap them, and have them for for putting on the plates or takeout, at that point.
So when you do that sort of thing, would you reuse the pan? Like if you made cornbread in a pan, would you have 3 or 4 pans and then just use those, or would you use one pan?
Yeah, well, if I'm doing a special event, I've got to use 2 or 3 pans at a time.
Right, and you're shoving them in the oven.
Yeah, because I've got 25 or 35 people that are going to want cornbread out of a 50 or 60.
And you're usually using like a skillet, a large skillet?
Yes, definitely a large skillet.
Okay. What's your favorite brand?
I would have to say Smithy is definitely my favorite brand.
Okay, and that's what they have here at the prepared table and what we're using tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like their cast iron. I also like their cast iron forged and carbon steel pan, the farmhouse skillet. I love that pan. That's one of my favorites right now. But yeah, the cast iron, it's just a beautiful piece of equipment to be sure, and it's forged almost perfectly. It's just there's no thinner parts. In some of these cast iron skillets you buy, you'll get thinner parts and thicker parts. It's real nice, thick and heavy all the way through. It keeps a temperature right where it needs to be for as long as it needs to be. So that's really the advantage of cast iron in general, is the durability and the evenness of the cooking. from edge to edge.
Right.
You're not getting a cold spot or a hot spot. You're not having to move. For example, the steak class tonight, I'm not having to move it over to a different part of the pan to make sure I'm getting the right part of the pan.
Right.
I know it's going to be even all the way through.
And a lot of people don't realize that cast iron's heaviness is a big important quality of cast iron. It needs to be thick
Yeah,
and heavy
absolutely.
to retain that heat and do what cast iron does. So if you really get a cast iron that's too thin, you lose that benefit, and you can get hot spots.
Yeah, not only hot spots, but when you put meat in the pan is going to cool a little bit. Well, if it's thinner, it's going to cool a lot a bit, not a little bit. So the thicker it is, the more it's going to maintain its temperature, which is going to give you an expected outcome. You don't want to have to try to twist yourself in a pretzel to try to make something come out right when you're expecting one thing and getting another.
Right, right. Okay, now when you clean it, you and I talked about this earlier. There's a lot of back and forth over the best way to clean cast iron, and I was excited that you do it the way I've read the pros do it.
Well, I just did it 10 minutes ago.
And I missed getting video.
An entire thing of bacon, and I had to cook the first patch. I cooked kind of malleable because we're doing bacon wrapped asparagus, and the next batch I cooked really crispy. So there was a good layer of bacon bits seared onto the bottom of the pan. So it would be quote unquote difficult to clean, but if you do it, if you just grab it the hot right off the stove when you're done, pour off the grease, wipe off the edge, and then take it immediately to the sink under hot running water. All I cleaned it with was a rag, and the hot water against the sizzling skillet will basically just dissolve the bits as you're cleaning. Once you do that, a little bit of scrubbing with the difficult parts, not much of anything, and then a wipe down dry, and then a wipe down with some bacon fat, so we're ready for the next thing.
And it is important to note that, Chef Lance, you were using hot water, because if you
Yes.
take a hot pan and you put really cold water on it, that cast iron's going to crack. And a lot of people don't realize that, but it can, and it will crack on you, and then you need a new pan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're done with your cast iron and you've got it nice and clean, how do you season it? What do you season it with?
Well, at home, I season it with either coconut oil, avocado oil, or some bacon fat. So I'll do the bacon fat just because that's normally what I use for my own self when I'm cooking. I just love bacon fat. So, sorry, I do.
There's no apologies on that
Get
one,
over
actually.
it, you health conscious
No
people.
apologies, does it say?
But when I'm initially seasoning a pan, or if I'm seasoning it to just sit there for a while and I know I'm not going to use it for a few days, I'll use coconut oil because it has a pretty good smoke point to it. But it's a natural oil. I don't like using the industrialized seed oils, the vegetable oils. A, they're not good for you. B, they're fake and they're processed. So I'd rather use a natural oil. And so what I do is I put a thin layer of the oil on. I heat the top of the stove really high. I put it on until it starts smoking, and then I turn it off and I just let it sit, and then I wipe it down. I'll turn it back on for just a couple of minutes just to heat up that last little layer, and then I'll put just a very, very thin sheen back on it and stick it in my oven. I keep my cast iron in the oven. Number one, I don't like bending down into a cabinet to pick up a 20-pound piece of equipment, and I use them quite frequently. And number two, if anybody just turns on the oven to preheat it and they don't know my cast iron's in it, it's not going to do anything but help my cast iron. So.
True. Okay. Any other tips or thoughts on cast iron? How did you get started with cast iron? Why do you have the affection for it like I do?
Oh, I think a lot of people that love cast iron today that were probably had family members that used it when they were children, and they have memories of great food coming from cast iron. I mean,
Yes.
there's nothing like bacon in cast iron. I mean, I just love it. I mean, you can cook bacon in a nonstick pan all you want to, but there's something about cast iron that and plus it's a natural element. It's a natural element from the earth. It's not manipulated with some sort of other manufactured ingredients. It's just iron forged, and that's the beauty of it. It's kind of a almost, we talk about holistic health. It's kind of like a holistic part of cooking.
I agree, and that's kind of important for you, right? Because that's one of the angles of you as a chef, and what you're into is metabolic cooking.
Yeah. My two passions are Southern food. I love cooking Southern food, and cooking for metabolic health. So my terrible cooking is the Southern food. It's the tasty, that just
the bacon,
dripping with flavor, comfort food that's not great for you. But I do have a passion for cooking for metabolic health, to kind of transform ourselves from the inside out and fix things that might be broken with us.
I love it. Okay, Chef Lance, Grits and Greens, and that's with a Z. Gritz.
Greenz.
And Greenz with a Z.
Yep.
And so I will put links in the video so they can check you out.
Well, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. And I will have pictures of how awesome this is, and everyone can be jealous.
And thanks for cutting the potatoes.
I did cut the potatoes. Thank you.